My name is Georgia, and I'm 33 years old. Growing up, there was an unspoken rule in my house that nobody ever said out loud, but everyone followed like scripture. My brother Tyler came first. Always. When I was 12 and he was 15, he crashed Dad's car into a mailbox and got a new phone as an apology gift for the stress of the accident. When I brought home straight A's, my mom would nod and ask if I'd help Tyler with his homework. It was never cruelty. Exactly. It was just gravity. Everything in that house bent toward him. By the time we were adults, the pattern hadn't just continued. It had calcified into something enormous. Tyler dropped out of 2 different business ventures, and both times my parents quietly absorbed the wreckage. They paid his rent for nearly 3 years while he found himself. When he wanted to buy a house at 29, my dad co-signed the mortgage, and my mom handed him the down payment like it was nothing, like it was owed to him. When his credit card debt spiraled past $40,000 from a failed crypto venture, they sold a piece of land they'd been saving for retirement to clear it. Nobody asked me if that was fair. Nobody asked me anything. Welcome back to Drama Tales Daily, where the quiet ones finally get their voice. If you've ever been invisible in your own family, settle in, this one's for you. Drop a comment telling me where you're listening from, and hit that subscribe button. The truth is about to speak. I left for college and never really came back. Not in any meaningful sense. I built a life 2 states away, working long hours, sleeping in my car more than once during the early years, eating ramen so I could reinvest every spare dollar into a small e-commerce analytics platform I'd started building in my apartment. I told my family I was doing marketing stuff. That was the whole description for almost 6 years. Partly because they never asked deeper questions. And partly, if I'm honest, because I was scared of what would happen if they knew. I'd watched what happened to Tyler's failures. I didn't want to know what happened to my success. The company grew slowly. Then all at once. By year 4 we had 11 employees. By year 5, we'd signed 2 retail chains as clients. By this past spring, a private equity firm had approached me with a buyout offer that valued the company at $25 million. I turned it down, not because I didn't need the money, but because I wasn't done building it. I told exactly 3 people. My lawyer, my accountant, and my best friend Renee. Not my parents, not Tyler. Christmas this year was at my parents' house. Same as always. The same table with the same chipped gravy boat my grandmother left behind. Tyler arrived late, talking loudly about a guaranteed real estate flip he wanted to pitch to Dad over dinner. Something involving a duplex in Arizona he'd never seen in person. My mom kept refilling his wine glass and telling everyone how brave he was for taking risks. I sat near the end of the table, mostly quiet, the way I usually was at these dinners. It fell apart because of my cousin Holly. She works in finance and apparently follows a regional business journal that had run a small feature 2 months earlier, titled Women Reshaping Retail Tech, with my photo, and my company's name, printed clearly beside a number. $25 million in valuation. Holly had seen it. She hadn't said anything to me directly, just assumed I'd already told everyone. Halfway through dinner, while passing the mashed potatoes, she said almost casually, "So, how does it feel being a multimillionaire at Christmas, Georgia?" The table went silent in that specific way. The silence that happens right before something breaks. My mother's fork stopped halfway to her mouth. My father set down his glass slowly, like sudden movement might shatter something. And Tyler just stared at me, his face shifting through confusion, then disbelief, then something darker. "What is she talking about?" he said. Not even really a question. I didn't get a chance to soften it. Holly, realizing too late what she'd done, started explaining, stumbling over the article, the valuation, the acquisition offer I'd turned down. Each word landed on Tyler like a slap. His hands started shaking, and then without any warning, he stood up so fast his chair tipped backward, and he sank down onto the floor right there in the dining room, sobbing, his shoulders heaving in a way I had genuinely never seen from him. Not once in 36 years. 15 million? He choked out between breaths, looking up at me like I'd personally robbed him. "You at least owe me 15 million. You let me struggle, you let me fail in front of everyone while you sat on this." My mother was on her feet instantly, not toward him, toward me, her voice rising into something I'd never heard her use before. Raw and furious. "You stole his future," she screamed, jabbing a finger toward me across the table. "You sat there every single year watching him struggle, and you said nothing. How could you do that to your own brother?" I sat completely still, the gravy boat trembling slightly from Tyler's collapse against the table leg. My father staring at his plate like it might offer an explanation, and 25 years of quiet compliance finally cracking open in front of everyone I loved. I left my parents' house that night without finishing dinner, without saying goodbye, without responding to my mother's voice, still echoing in the hallway behind me. I drove home in silence, hands tight on the wheel, replaying the sound of Tyler sobbing on that dining room floor over and over, until it didn't even feel real anymore. If this is hitting close to home, drop a 4s in the comments. Drama Tales Daily, where the quiet ones finally get heard. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications. The truth about what Georgia did next is coming. The calls started the next morning. My mother first, her voice softer now, almost pleading, telling me Tyler hadn't slept, that he was humiliated, that the least I could do was make this right by helping him the way I clearly could afford to. Then my father, more measured, but no less insistent, saying that family takes care of family, and that $15 million was nothing to someone sitting on a company worth 25. Then Tyler himself, alternating between guilt and rage in the same voicemail, telling me I owed him for every year he watched me pretend to be broke while secretly thriving. I didn't respond to any of it for 4 days, not out of cruelty, because I genuinely didn't know what to say to people who had spent 3 decades treating my success as theirs to claim the moment it became visible. On the 5th day, my aunt called to tell me the whole extended family had heard the story, reshaped now into something uglier, that I had hidden millions while letting my own brother suffer, that I was selfish, cold, ungrateful for everything my parents had sacrificed. That word sacrificed was what finally broke something loose in me, because here's what none of them knew. 2 years earlier, my father's hardware store had been 6 weeks from foreclosure. He'd taken out a business loan against the house to keep it running after a bad inventory year, and the payments had quietly spiraled past what the store could cover. He never told anyone outside the bank. I only found out because I still had access to an old joint account from years before, when nobody had bothered to close it, and I noticed the overdraft notices piling up. I didn't call him. I didn't ask questions. I set up an LLC through my accountant, completely separate from my name, and I started covering the shortfall every month. Quietly, so the store would survive, and my parents would never know how close they'd come to losing everything. A year later, when Tyler's mortgage payments started slipping after his crypto losses, I did the same thing for him too, routing partial payments through the same anonymous entity so the bank wouldn't escalate to default. I never told a soul except my lawyer. I didn't want credit. I didn't want them to know it was me. Because I'd learned a long time ago that being the one who helps in that family doesn't earn you gratitude. It earns you an invoice. So when my mother screamed that I'd stolen Tyler's future, when he sat there demanding $15 million like it was a debt I'd been dodging my whole life, something in me went quiet and very clear. I called my accountant the next morning and told her to stop the transfers, all of them, immediately. I didn't tell anyone what I'd done or what I'd stopped doing. I just waited. If you're on the edge of your seat, drop a fawn in the comments. Drama Tales Daily, where the quiet ones finally strike back. Subscribe for the fallout. You won't believe what happens next. It took about 5 weeks. Tyler's mortgage lender sent a notice of pending default, the kind of letter that lands hard when you've never had to read one before. My father's store loan, no longer quietly subsidized, fell 2 payments behind, and the bank called directly this time. No buffer left to absorb it. My mother phoned me in a panic, asking if I knew anyone in banking who could help, completely unaware that the anonymous lifeline they'd been living on for 2 years had simply vanished, and that the lifeline had been me the entire time. I told her the truth, all of it. The LLC, the store, Tyler's mortgage, the 2 years of silent support while they called me selfish at every family dinner I'd ever skipped because I was too busy building something they refused to take seriously. There was a long pause on the phone, the kind where you can hear someone recalculating an entire version of events they believed without question. My father called a week later, and for the first time in my adult life, he didn't ask me for anything. He just said he was sorry, that he hadn't known, that he should have asked harder questions before believing the worst of me. Tyler never called at all, not directly, though I heard through my mother that he was furious all over again, this time because the safety net he never knew existed was gone. I didn't give them the $15 million. I didn't restart the anonymous payments either. What I did instead was sit down with my father, just the two of us, and help him refinance the store loan properly, with his name on it, with terms he understood and could actually meet. I offered Tyler something too, not a check, but a real conversation about what actual financial responsibility looks like, if he ever wanted to learn it. He hasn't taken me up on it yet, maybe he will someday. What I learned through all of it is that love without boundaries isn't love. It's just quiet exploitation with better lighting. I spent years being invisible, so I could help people who only valued me when they thought I had nothing. I'm done being invisible now. If this story moved you, drop a FARPU in the comments. Drama Tales Daily, where the quiet ones finally roar. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. Hit subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. If you've ever been the quiet one in a family that only sees you when they need something, this was for you. There are more stories like this coming, and I think you'll want to be here for them. This is Drama Tales Daily. See you in the next story.